Ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. Our very way of life, our very existence is threatened. They have already taken over Washington. They continue to destroy our Constitution. It is time to take back our country now.
The Wise Conservative Show, bringing wisdom back to politics.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another rendition of the Wise Conservative Show. My name is Dakota Wise, filling in for my brother, who usually does the shows every Tuesday. He had a prior arrangement and unfortunately was not going to be able to make it today. With that being said, I am excited to be your host today. We've got a great show coming up. We're going to be start out talking about the recent news coming from the Obama administration about his plans for Guantánamo Bay, and then we'll move on to everybody's favorite. It could only be election news. We've got a lot to talk about and a lot to cover in the next 30 minutes. So once again, thank you for tuning into the Wise Conservative, and let us dive right in. Coming out recently being this morning, President Obama detailed his plans in which he is hoping to finally fulfill one of his biggest campaign promises, which was to close Guantánamo Bay. Now, he released a 4-part plan that he said he will be sending to Congress, which deals with the prison. First part of his plan detailed releasing even more detainees and transferring those who are too dangerous to be released to prisons on the United States soil. His second part of the plan detailed that they would be transferring 35 prisoners overseas, quote-unquote, carefully. The third part of the plan was about accelerating the review process for 56 detainees who have not had their status of the prison reviewed. They haven't had any sort of trial. His plan detailed accelerating that and ensuring that every legal action was taken in order to speed this process up. And lastly, his plan would involve working with Congress, which we know he doesn't do, but his plan involves working with Congress to select a secure location on the U.S. soil to house these terrible, terrible people. So, starting off with this plan, again, obviously it's just him trying to fulfill his campaign promises, because up until now, he has failed and failed and failed at keeping any of the promises he made. So this is just a Hail Mary of sorts in order to try to establish some sort of legacy besides for the failure of Obamacare, besides for the myriad of illegal executive actions that he's taken. This is a stab in the dark at trying to kind of fix his reputation. Now, his plan involves releasing even more detainees and transferring others to prisons outside of the United States. And this is a disaster. This is a disaster for the military. This is a disaster for United States safety. This is a disaster for military intelligence. We've seen it was something like 1/3 of the detainees we've released from Guantanamo Bay end up returning to the battlefield and end up fighting United States citizens and United States military and doing them harm. At least 1 in 3. It was somewhere between 1 in 3 and 2 in 3 end up returning to the battle and end up fighting the United States. And yet we're going to be considering transferring 35 more prisoners and releasing them, quote-unquote, carefully. How exactly do you carefully release terrorists whose only goal is to cause harm to the United States? The president's number one responsibility is to ensure the safety of American citizens. Yet, he's considering releasing 35 of the worst when it comes to the terrorist organizations that are forming in the Middle East. He's considering releasing 35 of the worst back so that at least 10 of them, because statistically at least 10 of them, will return to the battlefield, will organize people, and will fight the United States again. That's not keeping the Americans safe. And I don't think that it's going to have the consequences that he wants. He says that Guantánamo is used as a recruitment tool by the Middle East, by the terrorist organizations. Well, yeah, what in American culture isn't used as a recruitment tool? They use our freedom as a recruitment tool. They use our religion. They use our women. They use anything that the United States stands for as a recruitment tool. Should we really, really care that the prison where we're housing the worst of the worst is used as a recruitment tool? No, because they use everything else. They hate us for our freedom, not for our prison. And I can guarantee that whatever our prisoners go through is 100 times worse than whatever we did to these detainees, which, in my opinion, was justifiable. Okay? These people are not United States citizens. They are not protected under our Constitution. So why we have people who are arguing that they need to be given a trial, that they need to be protected under the Eighth Amendment? Those people are idiots. To be protected by the Constitution, you have to be a citizen. These people aren't citizens. They're not afforded the luxury of being the luxury that comes and the protection that comes from being a citizen of the greatest nation on earth. They don't get that, okay? When they decided that they wanted to kill Americans, they lost that, and they lost any opportunity of having that. If the worst of the worst really had to be put under some discomfort, if they had to be waterboarded, if it protected American lives, then it is 100% justifiable. You can't be protecting terrorists. These people were known terrorists. We didn't go out on the streets and just grab anyone we wanted to. These were people that we took the time to capture and that we knew had information that was vital to our efforts on the war on terror. They're the worst of the worst. There's no point in releasing these people, and there's no reason that we should be bringing them onto U.S. soil. Onto the soil. There's no reason we should have them in our prisons, recruiting more and more people with their Islamic extreme views, and forming these coalitions in prison, because let's face it, in a prison, it doesn't take a lot to get people behind you. You're always going to find people who are willing to join a cause. So why should we let these people who are known to be the worst of the worst that extreme jihadism has to offer into our prisons where they could potentially recruit people, or number two, where they're on U.S. soil, period. Okay, I'm not worried that they're going to escape our maximum security prisons, but out of principle, these people should not be allowed to step foot within our country. Leave them in Guantánamo. There's absolutely no reason to be closing it. You know, if they want to use it as a recruitment tool, great. You know, we have plenty of openings. You know, if they want to recruit people based on Guantánamo, well then, you know what? We might as well start expanding it. And people should know, if you're going to be fighting the United States, if you're going to be promoting terrorism and threatening the safety of the free world, then we will not stand for it, and Guantánamo is what happens to those who try to commit acts of terrorism against the United States. It's as simple as that. Yet we have a president who wants to close it. We have a president who's fighting harder to free terrorists than he ever fought for the American people. Yet somehow he got voted for twice. America, it's time to wake up. Hillary Clinton will do the same. She's not fighting for you. He's not fighting for you. They fought harder for terrorists than they have for you. It's time to wake up and see the real deal. Okay? And he says he's going to work with Congress to select a secured location on U.S. soil. When has he ever worked with Congress? So you know what? Throw that part out. I can tell you what's going to happen. He's going to executive action something, and all of a sudden the prisoners will be housed in one of the maximum security prisons, maybe in Colorado or South Carolina, both states which were proposed by the president, and their governors have quite normally, I don't blame them for saying, no, we don't want these people here, keep them where they are. Okay, but I can guarantee that President Obama is going to end up executive ordering something before he leaves office. He's going to go around Congress again, and these people will wind up on American soil. All thanks to President Obama. It's as simple as that. He's putting the worst of the worst on American soil and releasing the others, okay? He's putting American lives in danger. He's putting American servicemen in danger. But we've seen that this president doesn't actually care about the military or about the veterans. So it's not a surprise. It should not come as a surprise that he's putting more American soldiers at risk. He continues to ignore, not even just ignore, he blatantly refuses to admit that extreme jihadism is a threat to the United States. He blatantly, purposely will not say those words. Not once has he uttered the words extreme jihadism. Yet that is what we are fighting, and that is what is housed inside Guantánamo. But he wants to release them. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a president who cannot even admit who the enemy is, how can you expect that his plan to defeat ISIS will ever work when he won't even admit who the enemy is? Yet he continues to claim that the fight against ISIS is succeeding despite what the military generals and military officials are saying. ISIS is continuing to grow. ISIS, just recently last week came out, has expanded into Libya. They continue to grow, they continue to recruit, they continue to commit atrocities across the world, but we have a president who is supposed to be the leader of the free world who will not fight them. Yet, people are considering Hillary Clinton a third-term Obama. Okay, and I realize it's easy to not realize the threat that ISIS actually poses to the United States. Okay, because it's not like a threat that, like, say, Germany or Japan posed in World War II. There's never going to be an invasion of the United States by ISIS. But if we don't stop it now, the acts of terrorism, the threats that are posed against the United States currently, they will not go away. They will continue to increase. They will continue to increase in numbers and severity until we can't be safe within our own country. That is how terrorism works. Okay? You can't ignore it and hope it's going to go away. The time for that has passed. Okay? ISIS continues to grow. We need to stop it now, and we need a president who will be willing to admit that extreme jihadism is a threat to the United States. And that's why this election cycle is so important, because the very safety of Americans across the nation, not just Americans, the very safety of the free world, of Western Europe, even Russia, is at stake by who is elected the next president, because their number one job when they take office will be to fix the mess that President Obama has left in the Middle East with the continuing growth and the continuing growth of the threat of ISIS. That will be their number one job. So you need to be sure, you need to be damn sure that the president that the American people elect will be able to responsibly and actually execute that job and ensure that the safety for the United States and the rest of the world is achieved again. That's why this election cycle is so important. And that's why it is so important and so critical that Americans actually learn what these candidates stand for. Don't just vote for someone because she's a woman, okay? Don't just vote for someone because he's promising you free college. That is not what is going to keep America safe, and that is not what is going to solve the problems that we currently face. In fact, that is the reason that we're in the problems we currently face. Do you think if Obama wasn't black, he would have ever gotten elected? Maybe, but probably not for a second term. And that's not racist, okay? He played the historic vote. Good for him. He played the historic vote and it worked. But it has failed. It was a lame duck presidency from the start, and that is what it has continued to be. Okay, so this kind of naturally leads us into the second part of the show, which is, of course, talking about what the hell is going on in the election right now. And, of course, first on that list has to be that Jeb Bush has finally dropped out from the race. We've known for months that he stood no chance, but he finally admitted what the rest of us saw and has dropped out of the race. Now, I wasn't a Jeb Bush supporter, but I was a little sad to see him go because his speech of announcing that he was dropping out was so well done. Okay, he didn't take the opportunity to bash on people. He didn't take the opportunity to throw his support to one candidate or the other. Instead, he seemed like a really nice guy. It was a very classy speech. He sounded optimistic about the future of the United States. And it sounded to me like it was almost a retirement speech. It sounds like he's getting out of politics altogether and he's just going to enjoy the rest of his life. Good for him. I think if he had ran in 2008 or 2012, he would have had a much better shot at actually winning the presidency. He would have been a way better candidate than, say, McCain ended up being. So kudos to Jeb Bush for running his campaign. Kudos for a great speech he gave announcing his dropping out of the race. It was wonderfully executed. It came off really classy. And in my books, it earned him a lot more respect than I was giving him. Now, talking about respect, Ted Cruz has officially lost my respect, or lost any of the respect I had for him. This is where I differ from my brother and maybe some of the other people that you hear on the conservative talk radios. Most of them are in love with Ted Cruz, but I just can't see it. Okay, it's come out this last week, or several weeks, that Ted Cruz has essentially been running the dirtiest campaign out of any of the other candidates. Okay, and it goes further than the video he put out of Marco Rubio, which lied about what he said about the Bible. It goes further than that. If you actually look at it, Ted Cruz was sending out robocalls against Marco Rubio, against Donald Trump. Okay, he already did the tweets with Carson saying he was going to drop out. It seemed like that was an accident, but Ted Cruz has continued to have these little accidents, as he calls them. Now, he's just running a dirty campaign. And if you ask me, it's because he realizes, his campaign manager realizes, he is running a failed campaign right now. He had his moment, he surged, but Ted Cruz is out of the race. Ted Cruz has no chance of actually winning the nomination. Okay, but now that he's running a dirty campaign, and it's so publicly been exposed that he's running such a dirty campaign, I think he's done for. I don't think he's going to be able to recover because he was running on the fact that he was honest and trustworthy. His campaign slogan was trusted with, Ted. Clever, right? But now that he has it's officially come out that he's running a dirty campaign, that he's using all the tricks in the book to try to take down Marco Rubio and Donald Trump, I don't see him recovering from that because it goes against everything he's been telling us. It goes against the very platform he was running on. He's lost an incredible amount of my respect. And if anything, it makes me want to vote for Donald Trump or Marco Rubio more, just for the simple fact that he was running such a dirty campaign against them. So we'll have to see how that goes, but in my books, Ted Cruz is out of the running. He's probably going to continue to play second and third, but he really isn't hurting anyone but probably Donald Trump. Most of his support would go to Donald Trump. So I don't think he's hurting Marco Rubio or the establishment's chance of taking down Trump, but he might be... He's just probably going to stay in second and third place. That's where he'll finish. He has no chance of winning the nomination. But now, speaking of winning the nomination and having a chance, now things might get interesting with Marco Rubio. Now that Jeb Bush has officially left the race, it's pretty easy to logically easy to see that Jeb Bush's voters, Jeb Bush's support base, will probably making the transfer over to Marco Rubio, because Marco Rubio is the establishment's last hope at keeping Donald Trump from winning the nomination. And so here's where it gets really interesting. If you look at South Carolina, if you were to add up Jeb Bush's and Marco Rubio's support, he would have gotten roughly 30% of the vote, which puts him within 3% of Donald Trump. Now, if we have a candidate who can finish that close to Donald Trump, I think we could actually see a two-man race develop in which either of them, either Donald Trump or Marco Rubio, has a chance at winning the nomination. Okay? Because as of yet, Donald Trump has won most of these primaries by double digits, big numbers, right? So even if a candidate is able to very narrowly misbeating him, the media will pick up on that. They'll pick up on it being a win. He'll essentially have the Bernie Sanders effect, which, speaking of Bernie Sanders, so Bernie Sanders lost Nevada. I'm scattered brain, I'm sorry. But Bernie Sanders lost Nevada, not by a lot, but I'll tell you what's going to kill him. It's not the fact that he didn't win that many delegates. If you look at Nevada, he lost maybe 6 delegates on Hillary. Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. But what is a big deal, and what will get to him, is that the media is portraying this as a major loss to Bernie Sanders. If you look at this, Bernie Sanders had been surging. They had been questioning whether or not Hillary was going to be able to survive the Bernie Sanders surge. He was the next Democratic nominee, and all of a sudden he does not poorly. I think he had 47%. He was within 10% of Hillary Clinton. All of a sudden, though, they're portraying Bernie Sanders as having lost, and suddenly Hillary Clinton has become inevitable again. That's what's going to kill Bernie Sanders, and if you look to Iowa, it was a virtual tie, yet they gave that as a win, the media did, as a win to Bernie Sanders because he was able to catch up with the inevitable candidate, right? You know, coming into the race, Hillary Clinton was a for sure candidate. She was going to be the nomination. No one could question that. Okay? So when Bernie Sanders was able to do the unthinkable and catch up with her, that was a win for him. Now, if Marco Rubio, I'm tying it around, if Marco Rubio was able to catch up with Trump, I think he could see such a big surge. Now, whatever you have to think about that depends on how you feel about the establishment, whether or not that's a good thing. I think that Marco Rubio is more electable than Donald Trump. I'm really concerned. I like some of what Donald Trump is saying. He's not my favorite guy. Okay, there's no such thing as a perfect candidate, though, and I think Donald Trump might be able to actually get things done. He's not my favorite, okay? But what I would probably have to say out of Marco Rubio or Donald Trump, I would support Trump. Just because Rubio has been so weak on issues like immigration. Okay, he worked with Chuck Schumer, the Gang of Eight bill. However he tries to play that off, it happened. It didn't pass, so now he is having to backtrack on it. Okay, but he worked with Chuck Schumer. He worked to try to create amnesty for all these illegals. Whether or not he likes to say that he did, it happened. Okay, so that's why I'm leaning towards Donald Trump. But the thing with Trump is, I don't think he has a chance against Hillary Clinton. I really don't. And people have said, oh, he'll be able to beat Hillary. I think he's been too polarizing. Even within the Republicans, I think he's been too polarizing. Okay, because if you look at his policies and you look at what he's saying, they're miles apart. His policies, very moderate. Something that he could pick up a lot of independents on, something that even Democrats who don't like Hillary Clinton, which exist, a lot of them, if you look solely at his policies, he could stand a chance against Hillary and probably beat her, to be honest. But when you have to look at the way he's conducted himself and what he has said, okay, which is why a lot of people like him and why he's gotten so much support. But it's also the reason that so many people would never vote for him and would never even consider electing him president. It's a double-edged sword. It's the reason he's going to become nominated, but it's the reason that I don't think he stands a chance and why he's not as electable as someone like Marco Rubio. So that's my only concern about voting for Trump and choosing him as the nominee. Now, who do I think is the most electable candidate? As much as I don't like him, I think Marco Rubio would be the most electable. Now, of course, the thing with Marco Rubio is that honestly, there's not a whole lot separating him from Hillary Clinton. Their foreign policies are the same. They both want amnesty. They both are liars, okay? So there's not a whole lot separating Rubio, truthfully. There's not a whole lot separating Rubio from Hillary. And that's the scary part, because even the quote-unquote establishment Republican is not that Republican. He doesn't actually stand for that many conservative ideals. He doesn't actually represent the conservative movement. He's like a Hillary Clinton who references God too much. That is what Marco Rubio has become. Okay, and the establishment is the establishment. Well, right now I'm talking about like the leaders of the RNC, all the old-time Republican National Convention people, right? They're all rallying behind Rubio because they know they can control him. All these mega corporations are rallying behind Rubio because they know that they can buy him off. He needs money, they have money, and suddenly he owes them all favors. That's the way that politics has worked for decades, and it's not just Rubio. It's not just Rubio. In fact, probably the only one who's not being controlled by mega corporations is Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. And that, I think, is one of the reasons that they have surged so high in this election. Because no matter which side you are, Republican, Democrat, Independent, everyone can see that what we have going on in Washington is not working. Okay? Our political system has failed us entirely. Okay? We have two parties that can't even work together to get anything done unless it involves increasing their own salaries. That seems just about the only thing that they can get done. So, it's not a surprise. It shouldn't come as a surprise to either the Democratic National Convention or the Republican National Convention that the people, the voting base, has finally caught on to the sham that they've been selling the American people. That we have finally gotten tired of these career politicians who sit in Washington, living off our tax money, doing not a damn thing to help the American people. It shouldn't come as a surprise that we have grown tired of that. And that's why you have Bernie Sanders, and that's why you have Donald Trump, who pose such a large threat to the establishment. They are the anti-establishment. That is why they're being hit hard by the establishment and corporations. Because they want to change how things work. And right now, who benefits from how things work? Number one, establishment. Number two, mega corporations. Somewhere in this process that's supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people were taken out of the equation. We were completely removed. We have no say whatsoever in Washington anymore. And a majority, even, looking to the conservative movement, looking to the Republicans in Congress and in the Senate, I'd venture to say that a large majority of them don't represent the conservative movement and ideals any better than their Democratic peers sitting on the other side of the aisle. Okay? What this movement was supposed to stand for, what Republican ideals and conservative ideals were supposed to stand for, has been lost because we've had career politicians twist it to what they need. Okay? You want to know what the big difference with the establishment liberal and the establishment conservative candidates and congressmen / senators are? One wants to spend money on the military. The other wants to spend money we don't have on social programs. No one, almost no one, is actually a conservative, is actually fiscally conservative anymore. And that's the reason we're $19 trillion in debt. Yet our generation, the generation that will have to pay this debt, continues to support candidates who will drag us and dig us further and further into debt. Okay? During our lifetime, mark my words, if we don't get this debt problem under control, mark my words, during our lifetime, we will face the largest financial crisis that the United States, that modern history has ever seen. Because when you have a country like the United States that will inevitably wind up in bankruptcy court because we have so much debt and it continues to grow, there is going to be problems caused by that. There's going to be chaos. And now I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but if we don't get our debt under control during our lifetime, it will come back, it will cause chaos. We will have the largest financial meltdown of our times, all because we continue to spend money we do not have. There's my conspiracy theorist prophecy for the day. That just about wraps up the show. I'm thinking about increasing these to 45 minutes to an hour because they just go so fast. I need more time to spend with you guys. You guys are my favorite. With that being said, I'm Dakota Wise, filling in for my brother, Connor Wise. If you happen to have heard about us on the Jason Veely show, we'd like to first thank Jason for having us on the show yesterday. Great opportunity. It's a great show. He's a great person. He founded Youth Revolt, which we are broadcasting a part of. We love Youth Revolt. We love Jason. Great people, great organization, great shows. Check them out. With that being said, continue to like us on Instagram or follow us on Spreaker. It really means a lot. We really want to know what you have to say. And we really, everyone says this at the end of their podcasts, but I actually really appreciate it for you to listening in. It means a lot. You guys are the reason we do this. Stay safe, America, and God bless you all.